the default information from a column. Is that correct?
Yes.
Like, okay. So you set these up as site columns. So you'll do it at the site column level. So let's go to our site settings. If you set the column up at the library, you would do this at the library level. And there are very beneficial reasons why you might want a default. Let's say, especially in libraries that collect things like school year, I tend to recommend that if your document library or your list is collecting information about a particular school year, go ahead and set that default value so that that's one less thing that your districts have to enter in. And it's just up to the content manager for the site to remember to change it every year, but it just makes it like that much easier. And then if you have like a one-off, then obviously they can change it, but just sets that default value. Just makes it a little easier. So I'm gonna scroll through here until we find, okay. So one of them was document type of belief. So I'm gonna go to this document type, and I know that these are ones that were created on this site for a couple reasons. I see over here what site they were created on, and you only have the ability to edit them at the location that they were created. So down here is where your default value is, and every time you create a choice column, it's gonna automatically pull this top choice that you type in as the default. If you don't want a default, just delete it out. Down here, this is unique to site columns. Update all list columns based on this site column. In this particular instance, you want that change to trickle down to the lists and libraries that are utilizing this site. So they're going to leave it as yes. And it's going to double check with you. You're about to make changes across the board. Yes, that's what I want. So that's how you would do that. I'm going to leave the other one for you to change so that you get some practice on it. Do you have any questions on that? Does that help clarify that step?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it does, but when you make changes across the board, that does not change any entry that has already been submitted.
Correct.
Okay.
It just changes how the column behavior is across the board, not any data that's already been entered in. So,
and it would make sense for, sorry, go ahead.
If you are utilizing choice columns, if you edit those choices at any time, let's say you were to go in and remove contract now as an option, because it's a choice column, it's going to leave it for any that you have already chosen. And then moving forward, that won't be a choice. It'll be whatever choices you enter in.
Okay.
If you made a spelling error on contract and you go in and fix it, any that you have already set to the one with a spelling error, you're going to have to go in and fix if you want them to be the correct spelling and the correct choice. It will, choice columns retain whatever you chose at that particular time, regardless of what options are in the column now.
Gotcha. Okay.
Managed metadata, however, is not that way. If you remove something from a managed metadata term set, it removes it across the board. So it's kind of a key difference in the two things, which is why in a managed metadata term set, it's extraordinarily rare when I actually remove something. More often, I deprecate it and disable it from being selected so that it retains any historical information and any lists and libraries utilizing that managed metadata term set, but you can't use it moving forward.
Okay.
So two kind of key things.
Okay, I got it. I'm ready to move on to the flow.
Okay. So then now you want me to update, was it this one?
The other one, the number,
Okay.
yeah, one underneath that.
I thought you turned one of those off. Let me just refresh my
I
browser.
did. Turned off 4.
Okay. It just hadn't refreshed. It had just cached. So we're going to do the drop-off library, move to a specific folder based on the metadata that it collected. Now, I'm going to do this stuff in Classic Designer. Sorry. We can do it in Classic Designer and then swap it to New Designer and take a look at how it looks, but I'm going to do it in Classic Designer. So right now you're assigning just a very specific destination folder. And I'm sure you did that by clicking here and navigating through. So let's say, for example, let's go take a look. So where do you have folders set up in some of these things? No.
No, I don't.
Okay. So you have to have a folder set up in order to be able to then do that. So let's do this. Let's set up one called contract, because I see that you have a document type. We'll do it based on document type, and I see that you have one here on contract. So we'll just do that. They have to match exactly. Now the nice thing is when you create folders, it doesn't let you, I don't think, I guess it will.
Yeah, I've had a pretty good understanding of spaces, how it reads a space as a character, a space as a character.
Yeah.
So I know where you're headed, and I've made that.
Yeah, I was thinking that it didn't let you end on a space, but obviously it does. But anyway, you want to make sure, like you said, match exactly, including spaces. So you have a folder that matches exactly what you have here in your document type. So that's key. You got to kind of already have the folders there. So now what you're going to do is, so it was in your KDE program staff. So you go to the library itself, just like this, but then you have another layer. And layers are designated by the /. So you put your /, and then it's dynamic. So you're going to come to your dynamic content because it's going to be dependent on what they put as their document type value. And that's it. So based on the document type that's assigned, move it to that particular folder. Now, when you get really comfortable with this, you're probably going to want to add in some extra stuff to kind of ensure that they have something there, or if it's null, what do you want it to do? But at a base level, this is what that is going to look like. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
That makes sense.
So now let's go. What library are you dropping things off in? Drop off library. Okay.
Maybe I just got an email that you have made a change to a flow I shared.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to pop document in here. You'll notice there's no more default content type or default document type here. So that change has been made. How long of a delay do you have? 1 minute.
Just 1 minute.
Excellent. So let's go watch this run.
I love this part where you get so much information from this part.
Yeah. Yeah, this is really instrumental in making sure that you troubleshoot, like helping you troubleshoot. And if I get an error that I don't know what it is, or I don't know exactly what it's meaning, I copy that, usually the full text isn't terribly helpful, but the first sentence or two in that error message, and I just pop it over into Google and say Power Automate and a error, and I pop the little sentence or two in, and usually get pretty helpful information.
Where do you get that sentence?
I'll show you. So if, let's take this failed. So like, if I'm like, I don't really know what this means. I mean, I don't need these GUIDs. Those GUIDs aren't going to be helpful in a Google. Then, I'm going to copy this. I can probably show you a little bit better in another one that I actually just troubleshoot that uses a send from a shared mailbox. Just a second. So this one had failed. And Glyphosate had wanted to know why it failed. And it had failed at the send from a shared email, their shared mailbox. And so I don't need the GUIDs, but you'll see this sentence.
What are GUIDs?
GUIDs? These really, they're unique identifiers. So
okay.
These aren't going to be helpful in a Google search because they're unique to this particular instance. So this is the client request ID. This is the service request ID. They're usually about this long. And then just the unique identifier. So what you're looking for is this first sentence or two. And if you're like, I really don't know why this failed, which I didn't, you can search, but a lot of times I just like to copy it and come over here. And you'll find a wealth of information.
Okay.
Usually solved is helpful. At the very least,
yeah.
You'll find a lot of blog information, and it will help you narrow down as to maybe where exactly it failed. It's hit or miss as to whether it will give you a solution, but it will at least help you narrow down your search. Now, in this particular instance, it helped me remember, oh, okay, this particular step failed because I tried to run it under my credentials and I don't have access to send from the shared mailbox.
So I have Chat GPT on and it will give you a it'll give you some information why a step failed, and then Copilot, excuse me, why it failed. Like you can highlight that step, and Copilot will say, I found the following error. So that's I don't know that it always gives a way to fix it, but it always gives you something to think about. So
yeah. And that could be really instrumental, but then you may want to also try, there are some pretty amazing blogs out there that if you just do a search instead of utilizing Copilot, you'll find where other people have worked through very similar instances. And a lot of times Microsoft staff will have weighed in on those blogs.
Okay.
Or, there's just some really helpful back and forth sometimes. So I would try Copilot, but I would also try just searching.
Okay.
Because that information I have found does not get returned in Copilot. And it can be really helpful just seeing how other people work through similar issues. So you'll see that this document got moved into the contract folder because it was a contract document type. So that is that one.
Let's look, because we're good on time. Let's look at should we look at number 4? That's where the drop-off library with the loop that waits 10 days for a document to not be checked out before attempting to move it.
Okay.
Is that something we could roll into this recording?
Yes. So let's go ahead and turn off the one that we just did, because we don't want them competing. turn on this one. I'm gonna rename it while I'm here.
Okay.
And I'm gonna do this one again in Classic Designer. You can go back in and flip them back into New Designer and see what the settings look like at a later date. Okay, so in this particular instance, you're kind of adding two things. So you're going to need a loop that waits. It's located under the control, but when I call it a loop, it's really a do until. But I like to just go to the control and then you can see all of the different ones. So do until. And then you need something that it is looking for. And this is where I'm going to introduce concept of variables. So there are a multitude of types of variables. You always have to initialize it first. So no matter what else you're going to do with it, you always have to initialize it. And there are different types. So Boolean is true, false. And that's the kind that we're going to use in this instance. Now, there are all different kinds, and I utilize integer if I'm needing to count things. String and array are really common ones that I utilize with SharePoint workflows, especially. If you've got multiple, like if you've got a column with the capacity to choose multiple items, let's say you could choose up to you could choose more than one document type, for example. Array variables are really helpful in capturing those and then doing something with that in a useful manner. String variables are really helpful. You just string is just text. It's just text, whatever you want to put in there. It's just text. In this particular instance, we're going to use the Boolean because it's true, false. And we'll give it a name. So I typically just name it file lock. And we're going to start it out at false. So file lock is set to false. So now inside of the to-do step, we're going to say, do this until file lock is equal to, actually, we're going to do this using expressions, and we'll go back and.
So you are moving into the expressions part is
a little bit, yeah.
Okay.
So, and we're just utilizing it to get a more definitive true false instead of utilizing string. So, so utilize the expression for false and the expression for true, and it's literally just true and false typed into the expression field. I'll do that again. So you hop over to expression. You'll notice that when I start typing it, it is one of the choices, and that's all that it is. Okay, and same thing for false. I'm going to go ahead and move file step up here. A couple other things that you want to do. You want to change the limits. Right now, this is set to 1 hour. You're going to want to set it to P 10 days, however many days. If you're doing it by the hour, you need the time, and then however many hours, you can calculate it and calculate the quantity of hours and however many days you want to wait if you want, and it would be, 24 hours and there's a ton of blogs out there that detail how this works. Sometimes I have to go back and reference them, but there's a ton of blogs out there that'll give you the syntax for this. And then you just remove the count. And so it's going to do this loop for 10 days until file lock is set to true. Now, right now, it would just do this for 10 days. Actually, it
Okay.
would do it once and then it would fail. But we're going to add an action underneath, and we're going to add a condition statement. Actually, no, we're not. Just kidding. You're going to add an action, and you're going to do a set variable. I don't need the action. So set variable is one of your variable steps.
Okay.
And we're going to leave this one set to true. And we're going to leave it to configure run after is successful. So if the file is moved successfully, it's going to set the file lock to true, and then it will exit the loop because it will
Okay,
then
go
check,
back to, sorry, go ahead.
because it will check to see if it is true. And it will be true because it just did this step. And then if it is, we're going to set another one that is a delay. Actually, no, sorry, parallel branch. That is a delay. The file lock is 10 minutes. So we're going to have it wait 10 minutes. And we're going to configure it to run, not if it's successful, but if it's failed. So it's going to try to move the file.
Mm-hmm.
If it's successful, it's going to go ahead and set the file lock variable to true so that it can exit the loop. If the move file fails, it's going to wait 10 minutes and then try it again.
It's going to try that one time, right?
It will try it now. It will loop. It will, because it's inside of the loop. So depending on the status of this move file step, if it's true, think of it like Plinko, it's going to come over here because this one is set to run if it's successful, and it's only set to run if it's successful. It's not set to run if it's successful, fails, all of the others. Only upon success does it set that variable to true so that it can exit the loop. If it fails, it's going to come over here and it's going to wait 10 minutes and then it's going to try it again. Otherwise, if you don't have a delay, it's just going to continually loop.
Okay.
And that's just kind of a lot of stress on a workflow, and there's no need, because if the file is locked, it's going to have to wait 10 minutes anyway. Standard file lock is 10 minutes. So you might as well just have it chill for 10 minutes and then check every 10 minutes. Now, if somebody still has that open in their browser and they walked away from the computer for the day, it's going to fail every time, but it's going to try it for whatever you set your time out limit. And then if at the end of 10 days,
which is 10 days, it
still is not successful at moving it, then it's going to come down and do whatever else you have set here, which it looks like. So and because we moved to this, any of your configure run afters need to be reconfigured. So if you want one of them, like if you only want this one to run if it's done anything other than be successful, then you have to come in and set the configure run after again. Like anytime you separate that from its original step, you have to configure the run after again. It doesn't stay with the step. So like if you add something in between or you move something, like you have to reconfigure that, because it assumes that if you've made a change to that connection, then it goes back to its standard configure, like its standard run after, which is only run if it's successful.
Okay. Is that good for now?
Those are the two workflows.
Okay. Let me look and see if I have, before we stop the recording. I cannot think of anything. You helped with that. You helped with that. Still learning about that. No, I think we're good for now. So I'll stop the recording and play around with this.
Awesome. And just